and welcome. My name's Claire. I'm from the Future Students team here at UCFB. Welcome to this exclusive series, UCFB Applicant Experience online sessions. Along with much of the UK and the world right now, we're looking for new ways to move online, and all of our campus lectures and seminars have had to move online in the past month. So we want to get you in on the experience too. We already had our guest speaker panel series a couple of weeks back. I hope some of you managed to catch that either live or the recorded versions of those sessions that you should have all access to. Before we begin, I would like to give you a few tips on the platform we're using tonight. You can switch your screen viewing options in the icon at the bottom of the screen. It's on the right-hand side. Feel free as well to ask any questions throughout the chat. Our team are on hand to answer, and we may choose one or two of those questions to ask the academic team live as well. You'll also find in the chats down at the left-hand side our email address in case you want to get in touch after today's sessions. And just an outline of the session as well tonight. This session is only for applicants of UCFB. You're already considering studying with us, and we want to make sure that you're fully supported as you make your final decisions and select the institution and the degree that's right for you and for your future. So what better way to do that than to quiz some of our academic team about the degree programs you are considering. We've collated together some of our most frequently asked questions for the team to answer, and we hope that it helps you become a little bit clearer about UCFB and the degree programs you might be choosing. So let's start and welcome our academic team. Are you there? Can we hear you? Okay. Hello. That's great. Mick, Colin, Greg, welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself and also the degree program that you're representing tonight?
Yeah, sure. If I start, my name is Nick Kelly. I'm the program leader on the Sports Business Sports Broadcasting degree, which has been taught at Wembley for the last 6 years and is just starting at Etihad next year. I actually created a degree 6 years ago, so hopefully I'll be able to answer most of the questions we get tonight. It's obviously aimed at students who are interested in careers within the sports broadcasting industry once graduating.
Thank you. Colin? We can't hear you, Colin. You need to turn your mic on.
Is that on?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah,
thanks.
I thought I had. So I'm Colin Griffith. I am the programme leader for multimedia sports journalism based at the Etihad. Again, it's a programme that's really looking for students potentially looking to get into the media industry, such as, I suppose, specifically newspapers, radio, broadcasting, but also potentially working within a football club as a media officer.
Thank you. Greg?
Yeah, I'm Greg Nixon. I'm Programme Leader for Football Business and Media. Kind of similar to Colin, we're looking for students who want a career in the sports media industry, specifically football, wherever possible. TV, broadcasting, reporting, also public relations, marketing. So a more general kind of media career outlook.
Oh, that's great. Thank you all so much. Let's start with the questions then, if that's okay. And the first question that we often get asked, after everything that you've just told us about your programs, can you please help us define what are the main differences between the three media-based programs for anyone who might be choosing between them? So could I start with you again this time first, Mick, if that's okay?
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously, broadcasting is aimed at students who clearly like the idea of creating stories with pictures and sound. So we have students who are very interested in progressing towards a career with the likes of Sky Sports or whoever, who our graduates have gone to. And we have a clear pathway towards what I call telling stories with words, pictures and sound. They're storytellers, just I'm sure you hear the word Greg and Colin say, storytellers. But from our point of view, it's telling stories with words, pictures and sound. And we build up across the 3 years of the degree with challenges and more skill sets, more techniques, to hopefully make them ready for the industry.
Thank
Colin,
you. And
you journalism is different, right?
Yeah, so I suppose we're looking more specifically, I would say, at more sort of an online journalism role potentially. So again, there is that print option, but there's also more work taking place online these days, certainly in social media as well. So you're looking for people who would potentially that role of the reporter, go into the games, covering the game. But the new platforms that we use are enabling young people to really get into this industry because they've got those skills. So it's the multimedia production, if you like, more so than one specific platform. It covers the whole range, so it enables them to sort of like move across the industry really. But the industry these days does want multi-skilled graduates coming in, so that's kind of what we look to offer.
thank you. And for yourself, Greg?
Yeah, kind of very similar to the two other guys that we have. We're looking for people who want to work in the media industry with a football or a sports related job. We're kind of more generalised media, so we look at radio, TV, public relations, less journalistic based, more general media based. So that similar to Colin, you get a good taste of the actual media industry, from covering games to crisis management to producing radio broadcasts to TV shows. So yeah, it's more more of a generalised media-based program.
If I can just jump in there, Claire, I mean,
Yeah, of course.
I'm sure the guys will add in as well. I think what we do with the degrees is try and make the courses reflective of the industries our students are aiming towards. So we'll have match commentary, we'll have TV studio shows, we'll have documentary making. We'll have tasks and assignments based around skills that are applicable to the jobs they want when they graduate. So I'm sure that's obviously mirrored by what you guys do, right?
Yeah.
No, that sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That's really helpful. Move on to the next question now. Again, a common question that we get asked: what does a typical week look like for a student on your program? What's the week? Shall I start with you, Greg, this time? What's the week look like for your students?
Sure. Quite possibly up to 12 hours kind of contact time, lectures and seminars. And then Wednesday can be covering games, match reporting. Rest of the week can be working at a local football club in their media department. Obviously, individual studies as well. They've got assignment deadlines to meet. So we encourage, when there's no contact time and they're not working with the relative football clubs, that they carry out independent research, get involved in group work. It's there's a whole lot of things that we're getting involved with during the week.
Thank you. No, that's great. And how does that differ from students on multimedia sports journalism column?
The contact hours are pretty much the same, and the extracurricular work is also similar in that we encourage the students to almost double that amount of work doing other things outside of the classroom. So we encourage students to go and work with the local sports club, so they could be working within their media department, say within the week, writing things for their program, covering games at the weekend. It's really up to the student themselves. That I wouldn't say there's a typical week. It's really down to the student to decide really how much they want to invest in this degree program, and we'll provide all the opportunities that they need to commit however many hours a week they want to do. I mean, we know it's a balance. Some of them will have to work, earn a living, Some will spend more time studying and concentrating on the degree, and others will find a really good mix of classwork, study, independent study, and then external experience that they take on. Some will work with the club for 3 years. And I always find that the students who tend to succeed are the ones who take on that higher level of work experience, because it's translating what we do in the classroom into real life, and it makes a huge difference.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much. And for yourself, Mick, sports business and sports broadcasting.
Yeah, I mean,
typical week.
I'll probably reiterate a few points. Obviously, the guys said already. Obviously, like them, there's a 12 hours of time within, let's say, the classroom. But we obviously encourage our students to do lots and lots of work outside, because we teach practical skills in the classroom, but they learn themselves by testing that in the workplace. And then their learning really takes a huge step forward as they see the skills being put into practice in reality. So we have our students, just like the guys have said, working with lots of broadcasters in the weekends. We have people on video interns at QPR, various clubs in London around the area. But obviously, just like Colin said, the more the students dedicate themselves to it, the more they get out of it. And the evidence of that is in when graduates get jobs, the reason why they get their jobs is often because of the work experience and portfolio of work they've built up. So those portfolios of work with really good employers actually end up being what's being discussed in interview situations, and may well be the reason why graduates get jobs once completing the degree.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great, because that kind of covers the next question, which was independent study. And like you were saying, you know, what you're putting in, the hours that you're putting outside, as well as the classroom. So outside of the classroom and the contact time, how available and outside of lectures are you for one-to-one sessions with students? You know, if they need to see you on like a one-to-one personal basis. Shall we start with yourself, Mick, if that's okay?
Yeah, okay. So the way obviously we have a number of people working with me on the broadcasting degree, teaching across all 3 years. My specialism is with the year 3 students. So with the year 3 students on the broadcasting degree, which is different perhaps to the journalism and the media degree, they don't produce a written dissertation. They produce a documentary project, which becomes the most important project they work on in many ways across the degree. So a lot of year 3 is on a one-to-one basis, and I have 2 or 3 days where students have one-to-one meetings with me across those 2 or 3 days, and that one-to-one relationship usually is how a documentary would work in reality, because it's a very personal project. It's a very individual project where they're learning by what they're encountering in the reality of making the film. So that one-to-one relationship is really important in that 3rd year. So I have a very strong one-to-one relationship with the students, as I'm sure the boys do with their year 3 students as well. And I think the one-to-one relationship builds up across the 3 years as the growth and study grows across the 3 years. And by 3rd year students, I really expect to be very independent, very motivated, very self-motivated, and very independent in their study. So one-to-one is a very important part of the process. It helps them learn.
That's good to know. And Colin, how does that differ for you?
No, it's pretty much the same. You know, if you're working across, whether it's 1st year, 2nd year, or 3rd year, I know we all work very differently from each other. But if my sort of way of working it is, if a specific student wants an individual one-to-one chat, they simply drop an email and we arrange sort of in between lectures on a day when they're available and I'm available. And I think we're all pretty much available at some point during that week. We will get a one-to-one together, and I do try, and certainly in 1st year, in that first 3-4 months, you know, you make sure you have a couple of one-to-ones with all the students just to make sure they're bedding in. And that everything's okay. And then you may not see some of them until they graduate, you know, as a one-to-one basis, because they're quite happy with the way things are going. But then you might find yourself dealing with 1 or 2 others more regularly because they might have more issues. Everyone's different, so we treat them accordingly. Okay,
no, that's good. And for football, business and media, Greg?
Yeah, for fear of repeating the guys, yeah, if I'm not in a seminar or a lecture, I will be available to speak to students. Obviously, if they want a more a one-to-one session, like the guys, just drop me an email and we can arrange to meet up. But yeah, I'm available to speak to anybody that needs help or whatever, or advice.
Oh, that's really good to know. Thank you so much. Okay, and next question, and we've touched on it already a little bit with yourself, Mick. It's the assessment methods on your programme. I know you've talked about the documentary project in year 3. What are the other assessments, year 1, 2, 3? How is the programme assessed?
That for me, okay. So,
Yeah. Start with you.
What we try to do on the broadcasting, because it's obviously a very practical process, the skills are very practical. We try and make as much as we can live projects part of the assessments, and I'll explain what that means. So we have across year 2 and year 3 in particular, modules which are designed towards developing broadcast skills. So there's studio production, for instance, as a production skill, lots of skills about directing, camera work, editing that have been developed that are applicable to the workplace as part of that module. What we try and do is add live projects into that. So they're working with real external people. So for instance, they've just finished working on a project with the FA for semester just gone, which came unfortunately to an abrupt halt for obvious reasons, but they've been working on that project across semester 2. And that is a live project about the Wembley and the preparation for Euro 2020. So there's lots of interviews, lots of features, lots of studio-based projects being made. So in terms of assessment on the broadcasting degree, the emphasis is one line, which is the practical pathway, practical work. But alongside that, there are obviously other elements which fit into the business and broadcasting title. So there is an entrepreneurship module in year 2, which has some presentations and some essays as part of that process. There is in year 1, media law and ethics, which is very exam-based and essay-based, because you've got to learn and know what you can and can't say out in the workplace. The media law is obviously a foundation of approaching the job. And even in the broadcast practical elements, there are essays which reflect on what they've learnt. There are essays about things that are important, like the Ofcom code, like how the media is changing in terms of new digital technology. So to answer your question, there's a mixture, I would say, of essentially practical work on the broadcast pathway, accompanied by essays which reflect on what the industry is about, law, how do you do changing digitally. And in the 3rd year, the emphasis does go more towards practical with documentaries, which become the driving force of year 3. So I think practical more than academic essay writing, but of course essay writing is part of the process, making an academic subject.
No, that's great. Thank you so much. And for multimedia sports journalism column, assessment methods, how does it work?
Very similar to what Mick's just outlined in terms of there's a good mix of practical and sort of theoretical work. So the students will get to, it's split into something like they'll have a range of portfolios that they'll produce. So they'll have a series of match reports and stories to write that they would be doing for any sort of media organisation. But then there'll also be an essay connected to that, explaining why certain things are done a certain way by sort of researching what other people within the industry have done, which helps support their knowledge when it comes to doing the practical work. Again, the media law and ethics is one exam based and an essay, because it's important that they know or they have that knowledge. And then it's really a series, a couple of presentations where they get to highlight what they do. But I think it's a real mix. It's more practical than theoretical, but it is quite a good mix and a good balance in there.
No, that's great. Thank you so much. And football business and media, Greg. I'm coming to you first next.
Oh, good. I hope I can answer it.
The assessment methods.
Pretty much similar. Excuse me. We have a mix of academic, theoretical work, practical work. For instance, second year is quite heavily practical. Students create their own radio bulletin, and then in the second semester, go out and film some little sports packages that they put together in a live TV show at the end of that semester. So that's real good fun, really practical. But yeah, we have also the theoretical side, the academic side. Like Colin has said, we do match reports. We do a portfolio of the work that's been carried out over the 3 years with us in a media situation. So there's a good mix. Football, business football has an exam just before Christmas. So yeah, we have, as the other guys have said, a mix of all three: exam, assignment based, and practical work.
No, thank you. I think you've answered that great. Thank you so much. Next question. And I'll start with you first, Greg, football, business and media, if that's okay. What does it take to be a successful student on your course?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think a good student has got to be prepared to put the work in, and to not only put the work in, but to enjoy the time. You know, there's a balance. You come from school, you come from a sixth form situation or a college situation where you're probably still living at home. You've been in college every day, 9 till 4, probably school 9 till 4. You've worked hard, hopefully, and then you come to university and it's 12 hours a week and you have all this time on your hands. It's not like a school or a college situation anymore. It's probably in a lot of cases the first time some students have come to a learning environment not wearing a school uniform. So be prepared to work hard, but enjoy the experience. And I know it sounds a cliche, but put into it what you want to get out of it. Get involved in the things that UCFB is very good in putting on things for the students to get involved in, whether it's commentary, whether it's going and working for a football club, whether it's getting involved in UCFB football teams. Just immerse yourself in the student experience, and work hard, but enjoy yourself as well. I think that's certainly what I did when I was at university many years ago.
Any more to add? Mick, shall I come to you next? Is that okay?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the answers here will be very similar for all three guys here, because it's an approach more than anything else that we're looking for. I think, to probably reiterate what Greg said, the evidence, having produced 2 sets of graduates now, on my first set of graduates for this degree, the evidence is the students who commit to those work experience opportunities, those internships, and compete for those internships as well. The students who commit to that and test what they've been taught in the classroom in real scenarios, in real life work situations, and then come through stronger because of that, they're the students who do better. So the evidence is we encourage our students to really commit towards those opportunities that UCFB have got through EE, and obviously things that we develop ourselves through our contact with the industry. And the students who commit to that do better. So we encourage them to do that. And that willingness to commit to learn is probably what we're looking for.
And for you, any more to add, Colin?
Echo everything the guys have just said. I'd also, I suppose, a couple of things that I would add is I think Greg touched on it, is the level and the standard of the industry speakers that we get here is second to none. You won't get this level of engagement with people from the sports industry anywhere else. So make the most of that and be prepared to, put those inhibitions to one side, go up to them. I don't care who it is, get the contact details, get them on LinkedIn, hassle them. I mean, we had Mark Chapman in the other week from Match of the Day, and he was saying, get me your details. That's how I got my work experience. And you'll find most of them have, and they really do, or they're impressed by people who are prepared to make that commitment and front up and speak to them. And also, I'd say be prepared to make mistakes as well. It's an opportunity to learn from those mistakes in a relatively safe environment, to ensure that when you actually go into the big wide world, that you're not making those mistakes and you'll impress employers that way. Don't be afraid to commit to something and thinking, oh, what if I get it wrong? There's people there to help you. industry. So we're all, industry experts as well. We're not just teachers. We've all worked in the industry, and we're there to help you or help students get on and learn from some of the mistakes we've made. I know Mick doesn't make mistakes. I know that, but it's an environment that you're there to learn, and you're going to learn by making mistakes. So be prepared to make them.
No, thank you. No, that's great. Next question. Does the degree programme, or each of the degree programmes that we're talking about tonight, only cover the football industry, or is the wider sports industry available to look at as well? So shall I come to you, Mick, first, if that's okay?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the answer's in the title for sports broadcasting. It's not just about football, it's about sport. So just judging by the documentaries, we've got students working at the moment. We've got motor racing, we've got Hungarian handball, we've got a wide variety of subjects. So the subjects we focus on are reflective of what Sky Sports would have, what other major companies would have, which is a wide range of sport content. Someone told me something many, many years ago, which I've always remembered. If you want to be employed by a sports broadcaster, know your Premier League football, but also know another subject. You can't go into an interview and say, I know everything about all sports, because that's probably impossible. But being a specialist in Premier League football, which is obviously very employable right now, but also a specialist in another sport makes you more employable. So we encourage our students to do exactly that, have specialisms away from just football, which obviously makes them probably more employable for broadcasters who deliver all sorts of sports. Okay,
thank you. And multimedia sports journalism, Colin?
Again, it covers a whole range of sports, and I think pretty much everybody has an interest in football. So we do focus on football a lot because it's the national sport as well. But a lot of the things that we deal with affect other sports as well. And you'll find that some of the students bring their own knowledge of other sports with them. So you'll get people who've got a really good knowledge of American football. For instance, seems to be a very popular one. We've had a bit of Aussie rules. We've had somebody doing a bit of Gaelic football. And a lot of these things apply because a lot of the theories and the concepts that we talk about, whether it's to do with the funding of sport, they all apply. And it does make for quite a good mix when people have got other things from other sports. You compare how football operates in relation to something like rugby league, and how rugby league struggles maybe to get the money that is drained away into the Premier League at the moment. But we cover a whole range of sports. We even touch on esports a lot as well, even though it's get myself into trouble now and say it's not a sport, but it's it works the same way in terms of the way it works with the media. So it is something that we look at.
No, that's great. Thank you so much. And Greg, for you, football, business and media.
Me last again. Sorry,
first next time.
It's getting personal now.
Oh no.
Well, one of the underpinning theories of the whole degree is the impact of media on football and sports in general. So how has Sky Sports impacted on football? Yes, but rugby league, cricket. They've created a whole new sport out of cricket, 2 whole new sports out of cricket in T20 and the 100 baller that we may not see this year. But also we encourage in the TV production modules and the broadcast journalism modules to find sports that are off the radar. So as Colin said, we've had Aussie rules football. We've also had things like kabaddi as well that have been covered. These are great little niche sports that if you can get a foothold in them and you can get a story, that sets you up in, as Mick was saying, for a job in the industry. If you can find out about these sports and you can get the details, etc., and create a little media, concept around that, that's great. So although it's football, business, and media, we do encourage them to look at other sports as well.
No, that's great. Thank you. I'm coming to you first now. So you're making me feel bad. So just with regards, obviously, on media-based degree programs, equipment, facilities, what equipment do the students or would need access to on your course or have access to?
Well, over the past couple of years, UCFB has invested heavily into media kit, for want of a better phrase, camera equipment, radio equipment. We've got a new hub up in Manchester at Piccadilly. So although that's not based at the stadium, you know, Piccadilly Hub is an actual studio-based environment where the students can do TV production work, radio work, they can do media work from there. So, you know, there is plenty of equipment that the students can get their hands on. We've got technicians there who can show them how to use the cameras. And I think importantly, we're bringing in extra staff as well to help deliver the programs, which is a really good benefit. They'll be industry experts as well as, you know, experienced in the kind of HE industry. So yeah, there's been a lot of investment from UCFB over the past few years. We're in a very, very healthy position as far as all the equipment somebody who would work in the media would need to get their hands on and to go out and produce TV, radio, produce media work. So yeah, it's encouraging.
No, that's great. And what about Mick for you?
Yeah,
equipment-wise?
Equipment-wise, what we try and do is reflect what's happening in the industry. So the industry, when I was working in the media alongside these two guys many moons ago, we had big equipment we were going around with. Now equipment is much more mobile. So we stress our students become multi-skilled. So they can shoot, they can edit. A lot of students come onto the degree wanting to be a presenter, but leave wanting to be an overall producer. That's just the pathway a lot of students take on the 3 years. So they get lots of equipment. So we've got a studio we share with ITV and Wembley Stadium. So when you see the England games in the studio with a window looking out to the pitch, we share that studio for our year 2 projects. When they're making studio productions, we've got full Blackmagic design studio. We've got Sony and Canon cameras, which are reflective of industry standard quality. Our students shoot with radio mics as well as microphones when they're out filming. It's really moving towards being self-contained as a program maker, and having all the equipment with you in a bag, land, shoot, come back with content. And then we edit on Adobe Premiere Pro, which is, again, an industry standard editing software. So if you leave with good knowledge of Adobe Premiere Pro, you might well find that the companies you join also have Adobe Premiere Pro as editing software. So yeah, the equipment is steering towards obviously what they need. But the equipment is going to change going forward as we go smaller and more mobile. And we'll aim to reflect that as the industry moves forward as well.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Colin, do you have any more to add with regards to equipment or facilities for campus? I
think what Mick was just saying is that, you know, we move with the times, and it's good that we've got people like Mick who's from that broadcast side of the industry. So he's got a very good sort of hands-on knowledge of what kit is being used currently. And because of all the contacts that someone like Mick will have, we're able to then say, actually, we're moving towards this now. So that's probably, if we were looking to update our kit, we would probably think, well, that's something that we should use. I think we've mentioned the podcasting kit. One thing we also encourage students to do is just to keep an eye on all the apps that are out there at the moment. They're developing all the time, new one every other week. And while a lot of them are just used for social communication, there's potential professional uses there as well that they can make use of, and that's something that we look to develop. So we get them, obviously there's the obvious ones, you know, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, but, you know, how can we use, I don't know, TikTok is the latest. How can we actually use that to tell a story, to engage with people, and ultimately make a few quid? You know, that's one way of looking at it. And then some way combining everything that we do. So you've got the broadcasting, you've got the podcasting, you've got the writing, you've got the social media. How do you just bring all that together for one piece of work? Ultimately, you know, we're using different pieces of kit, and this is where students really need.
Oh, we've lost you a bit there, Colin. Are you still there? There you go. You're back. You're back. You just went a little bit then, but you're back now.
Okay.
Thank you. No, that's great. Thanks so much. We've had a question. Sorry, Colin, go ahead. No, he's gone. You might need to just flick your camera on and off again.
I don't like that face.
And then, there you go. Hopefully your connection's back up. I'm going to move on to a question from someone from the audience tonight, someone who's watching tonight. That's okay. And it actually ties in with a question that I've got on my sheet to ask as well. So I'm going to try and tie it all in together. So it's a question from Matt Smith. Thanks, Matt, so much for your question. It said, would you advise or recommend any specific workshops or enrichment sessions to take while studying? Particularly interested in taking the commentary workshop. So any employment and enrichment, placement opportunities, any recommendations? Shall I start with you first, Greg?
Yeah. Well, yeah, commentary is a great workshop to get involved in. It depends where you see yourself going in the future once you kind of what particular pathway you want to take. We have enrichment, we have Spanish lessons. I think we still cover Chinese and Mandarin, I think. So, there's all sorts of things that we put on that you can get involved in. Commentary, as I said, is a good one. Get involved. The EE team are very good, the enrichment and employment team, and they're always on the lookout for opportunities for students. The guys here, as Colin has said, we've all worked in the industry. We've all got contacts. Use E&E to get placements. Get involved in a placement at a sporting organisation or some sort of sporting media we can, because it really does give you an insight into how the industry works, as I think Colin was saying before. But I wouldn't like to kind of specifically point anybody in a certain direction, because we're always looking to introduce new enrichment every year. So, whatever, it might sound a bit vague and a bit avoiding the question, but whatever you're interested in that you can get involved in, I would encourage everybody to do that. Definitely, yeah.
No, that's great. And what about Mick for yourself? Is there anything that you would recommend? Any enrichment workshops, placements?
So I'm assuming he wants to be a commentator. In fact, he wants to do commentary.
He's very interested in the commentating.
So obviously the commentary workshop would be something you should definitely step forward for. And I'm sure that's at both campuses. I don't know which campus is at, Etihad or Wembley, but on both campuses, those workshops exist for the commentary. I think, just again, at the risk of repeating what you guys have said, work placements are really important, because we've had students who have joined football clubs at lower levels, but every football club now has their own online website, and those football clubs now have match highlights. And invariably, a good student who has gone through commentary workshops and commentary classes at UCFB may have the skill set to test themselves in that environment. So I would say, yes, workshops, but work placements are just as important, if not more so. And you might find opportunities, again, to test that learning. Going back to the point I made earlier, we teach these skills in the classroom, but the students learn most by testing it in workplace. So having students do commentaries on lower league clubs, non-league clubs, but having them commentaries across match highlight packages, that is a great learning experience for them.
And Colin, any more to add?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Right. Well, just very quickly on the commentary, just a quick story. We had obviously we have Peter Smith from Sky Sports, who comes in and does the commentary workshops for us. Two lads about 3 years ago now came in as first years. They enrolled on the commentary course with Peter Smith, so they went off and they did a few games at Bolton, Blackburn, but they also both had an interest in FIFA esports, and they were within the first term at UCFB, they entered a competition to commentate on the FIFA tournament, and they won the UK title. They were then put forward to the European title, and they won that. And they are now within sort of 3 years. They graduated last year, so throughout that 3 years, they were pretty much the leading commentary pair for esports, FIFA. So working with EA Sports, FIFA, working with a lot of the Premier League teams now who've got their own e-teams. And it all comes down to that commentary workshop.
Yeah, amazing. I know that story. So good. Thank you so much.
Now on lockdown as well, so.
I know. We're down to our final question now. So it's our last question on the questions that I have here. And it's, what can we be doing now, or what reading or preparation can somebody who has applied for one of your programs be doing now to prepare best for September? Colin, shall I come to you first?
Yes, please. I'd just say the first thing I would say, the one thing I would get anybody to do, whether they are going into broadcasting, online, radio, whatever, just read newspapers. Read the sport in newspapers, or subscribe to The Athletic. It's the more you read, the better a writer you become, whether it's writing for a newspaper, whether it's writing a script for radio or TV. The more that's the one thing I would say. It's the one thing I encourage my students to do throughout the course, and it's something I want students to be doing on a regular basis. People might say, "Oh, but newspapers, we don't buy newspapers anymore." You should, or just pick one up, get the Metro when you're allowed to travel again. Just read as much sport as you can, because it will affect the way you write.
No, that's great. Great advice. Thank you. And Mick?
I'd support what Greg just said then. I'd reiterate that point. I'd also perhaps add that from a broadcast point of view, I ask students when they're joining is to try and turn from a passive viewer into an active viewer. So start thinking about what they like and why they like it. And then start trying to think about, okay, I like that program, I like that presenter, I like that documentary, that style of program, why do I like it? And then try to sort of break down the process a bit. So it's that kind of passive to active viewer. Also, if they're interested in broadcasting, have they got a YouTube channel? Have they got a blog? Have they got something where they actually try and create content, make mistakes, because that's how you learn, but create content. So yeah, there were two things I think about. Think about, obviously, widen your knowledge, as Colin has said, but perhaps from a broadcast point of view, think about way of publishing work, try and be creative with content, a YouTube channel or a blog, and then try and think about what they like on television and, more importantly, why they like it.
That's great. Thank you so much. And Greg, football, business and media, what can we be doing now to get ready for September?
Again, I echo what Colin says about reading newspapers, what Mick says about getting involved in actually creating your own media if you can. And as Mick says, critique what you're watching. You know, if you're watching Soccer AM or whatever, or Football Focus, why are you watching that program? What could you do better? What do they do well? What could you improve in that? You know, as Mick says, if you can get to kind of create your own media, you know, that's good. That's good. And also be aware of what's going on. Be aware of what's going on in the sporting world and the world in general, and have an awareness of the issues that are important to the media and the sports industry. You know, that the two things are linked together, and as one changes, the other changes, and they change each other. So be aware of the issues in media, the issues in sport and in football, and develop your own kind of presence, as Mick and Colin have just said.
No, that's great. No, thank you. Thank you so much for sparing your time tonight and for all your tips and advice about each of the courses that you're representing. Honestly, can't thank you enough. Thanks to our academic panel for tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Nice to see you. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so feel free to switch your cameras off if you'd like. Greg, now, Mick, Colin, you can switch them off. What a fantastic way to get a further insight into UCFB's suite of media programs. I hope you found that useful. Just to let you know, if you do have any outstanding questions with regards to tonight's webinar, or any questions whatsoever with regards to studying at UCFB starting in September, from the degree that you've applied for to your student loan to anything, then we're always here to support you. So just email us at study@ucfb.com, or there's live chat on our website, www.ucfb.ac.uk. We're going to be back again tomorrow for our second session in this series, and we're going to be talking finance, marketing, football business and finance, football business and marketing, and international football business. We thanks so much for watching, and we hope to see you soon at UCFB. Good night, everybody.